Where the Rain Falls is an action research project undertaken by CARE France as a part of the CARE International Network and working with the United Nations University. So we did field research in 8 countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. So those countries were Guatemala, Peru, Ghana, Tanzania, India, Bangladesh, Thailand, and Vietnam. So quite a wide range of different countries. And in those countries we were looking at the impacts of climate change, and especially changes in rainfall patterns on agriculture and on food security in rural areas in these countries, and how that's already affecting the communities, and whether and how they use migration as a strategy to cope with impacts of climate change on their livelihoods.
And what are you finding? How are people coping with particular sort of lack of rainfall?
Yeah, I think what we found is, first of all, local communities really perceive significant changes taking place in patterns of rainfall. It's not so much big increases in amounts or decreases, but changes in the pattern. Rains are starting later in many cases. During rainy seasons, they're seeing long, dry periods. They're seeing fewer rainy days and more heavy rainfall events. Sometimes rainy seasons are ending early. So all of this is having a big impact on their crop production, livestock production, and in the villages where we did our research, that is really the foundation of the economy. And so our concern is that people are already struggling with those impacts, and our concern is that if global warming continues, and if we are truly moving toward a 4-degree centigrade warmer world, how will communities like this cope, and what can we do to help them adapt to those changes in climate?
Is it an issue that where I guess in the past, if there had been a drought or a prolonged period of dry weather, communities would just have moved to a different part of the land, but now obviously we have all our state boundaries, so they're kind of trapped?
Well, we did certainly find cases where people, for a variety of reasons, can't move or can't move freely. Still, actually, what we found is migration is a major strategy that households are already using, and especially households with little land of their own or who are landless. But most of that movement is within national boundaries, either to urban centers or to other rural areas where the agricultural conditions might be more favorable. Of course, in some areas you have much denser populations and much less land available to move, so that's also a major constraint in many of these countries.
And I guess moving forward, I mean, we know there's going to be more sporadic rainfall as a result of climate change, and I guess that will be dependent on what temperature the world gets to. What's your kind of assessment of these communities and how we move forward? Because the outlook is not good, is it?
Yeah. Well, I think what we observed in these communities is, despite the fact that the impacts are already being felt, too little is being done to help them prepare. So we need greater investment, for instance, in sustainable agriculture that will be more resilient to climate change. We need to help households diversify their sources of income so that they're not completely dependent on rain-fed agriculture. One of the big impacts of climate change that we're already seeing is an increased frequency of severe weather events and natural disasters. So we've got to strengthen disaster risk management and disaster preparedness in these communities so that they can stabilize it. And so for us, our goal is that people can be supported if they want to stay in their communities, but to develop more resilient livelihoods rather than being forced to migrate. People who want to migrate, who want to send their children to the city for education, whatever, that should be an option for them. We're not saying migration is a bad thing, but migration is a bad thing if people don't have a choice and if they're forced to do that, and that's what we're trying to avoid.